Hi, this is how I reserved my spot on the West Coast Trail for end of July 2017. I reserved my spot in January. So how do you find the location, the site, and where you reserve your spot? You can type in Google anything along those lines. West Coast Trail reservations, you can type in that. Pacific Rim National Park, something to do with the Government of Canada, the GC, West Coast Trail reservations. From this page, there are two ways of doing it. You can click on this reservations button, or you can click on reserve now. I do not recommend phoning in. The reservation system will open at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, January 8. By 8:30, the prime 4 weeks, which are the last 2 weeks of July and the first 2 weeks of August, were already gone. There were no more spots available by 8:30. By 8:20, there was sporadic days throughout there where one could go in as a solo hiker, maybe get two people in. Beyond 8:30, then it started booking up, toward September and then back toward June and that time. If you are a fairly big group or more than two, I highly recommend being ready at 8 o'clock. What's happening is the tour folks are booking up groups of 10. You're allowed to book a maximum group of 10. And they're grabbing the best spots for their clients. They do this for a living. They're sitting ready and they're grabbing the best times available. If you want in on that or you want to be part of that time, then you have to be ready. Otherwise, you're just going to take what you get, and it's most likely that you will not get a spot in the prime weeks there. But if you don't care and you're looking at a shoulder time, shoulder date, a little off season, you can, if it's off season, you can practically book just before you go, I think. Depending on how off season you're at. September seems to book fairly quickly as opposed to the beginning and end of the season. I guess it's just avoiding kids and that kind of thing, but not sure. Anyway, keep that in mind. Okay, and there, before you even reserve your spot, there are some things you need to do beforehand, or at least this is what I did beforehand. I applied for a GC key, Government of Canada key. Basically what that is you have your information online with the Government of Canada. All you have to do now to reserve the spot is you sign in, then you just click on reserve, and they already got most of your information. I don't recall if I had to put my MasterCard in again or if I kept it for this time, but I think I'd keep your MasterCard or your Visa or whatever you're using handy. It would have been good to have gone through, I believe, and had booked a site. You probably still can. Go find some place that's open over the winter and just book the date. Just see what you got to do and what you got to prepare for. You can always cancel it again. They're booking for March, so book something in March and then cancel it. Just at least then you know what you got to go through and the preparations and stuff you're ready for. Now they put the West Coast Trail reservation on a different day than anything else when you open it up, because there have been times in the past where it actually crashed their servers. So many people are booking in all at the same time, and that's why I say it's not recommended unless you're a solo single hiker and you got time not to call in, because by the time you go through the information on the line, on the phone, if you can even get in, because there's going to be a ton of other people doing it as well. By the time somebody actually answers the phone, it takes you, it could take 5-10 minutes before you actually get all your information into this person and they sign it, and all they're doing is what you're doing here online anyway. Know exactly when you want to go. Like I say, I'll show you in a minute. I had I don't know exactly the date and fallback dates as well. Knew what end I was starting from. So are you going from the north, the south, or are you starting in the middle? You should already have that figured out, because you can still tweak stuff after the fact. You book your time first and then you book your accommodation and your transportation if you're doing it that way. You should already have a kind of a plan in place on how you want to do this. I personally checked last 10 years of weather, archived data for the area, as well as I checked any anomalies for the last couple of years, just because everything, it's been this way for the last 8 years doesn't mean the next 2 years are going to be the same way. I was looking for the driest weeks of the year, the hottest, and the least amount of fog, and then the anomalies, of course. I also looked at the tide schedules, so the moon cycles, which falls into that affects the tide heights and the schedules, and also night illumination. I was kind of hoping for a full moon at night, but I'm glad I didn't get that, because it would have been too bright on the tent. Basically, you'll want to sleep, so the darker is better. Of course, your available vacation times when you can go, long weekends traffic. How are you getting there? Are you flying? Are you driving? Different flight costs for weekdays, weekends, busiest days on the trail. Does everybody kind of like show up on the weekends, or do they show up on a Monday? It doesn't really matter in the prime times because it's just busy every single day. And days and times businesses in the area are closed or they're busy. Didn't really find that to be an issue either. I mean, they're used to this. They've been doing this for years. Other stuff I did before this was I watched every video online. I read a lot of blogs. I checked all the government sites. Created a detailed description document of every kilometer of the trail from information I've gathered from the videos and anything from the books I read. I highly researched this, and I wanted to memorize every kilometer of the trail and what's on it. For the main part, if I had to evac out or if I had to help somebody or stuff happened, I had resources. I knew where I was going to go. I knew what I could do. Was I at that point? I wouldn't say that. I generally knew what was along the trail anyway. I wouldn't say I memorized every single kilometer, but I basically knew what was on it. Water, basically, well, I did need to know where water was. There was a lot more water than I suspected. I thought it would be very dry because I did take the driest week, and it had been very dry before I showed up, but there were still creeks and stuff. Which camps, alternate camps, food, distance, terrain, sites, shipwrecks. I just thought shipwrecks was pretty cool as you're hiking along. Hey, so-and-so crashed out there. During the last year and a half before I booked, or before I went rather, I was pretty much starting from scratch, so I purchased the hiking gear and camping gear. I started camping, got some experience, checked accommodations, and even what rooms are best at each accommodation. Water and food requirements and availability. Again, you don't want to be packing. Water's heavy. You don't want to pack water if you don't have to. So where can you get water and how much do you need? Researched and purchased electronics that are required. So like I got a satellite device that can call for help. Photography, of course. Even psychological effects from the trail. Because what happens is about the third or fourth day, because of the strenuous daily activity that people aren't usually used to, and the food diet has changed. People become very moody and angry, and it usually happens on the third, fourth day. I booked my time, so my third, fourth day was going to be, fourth and fifth day, was going to be very easy. And so those would have been my relaxing days. I ended up getting evac'd off the trail. That's another video. I wasn't injured. I just caught a bug or something. I don't know what that was. But you don't eat, you can't hike. So that's where I was at. And yeah, you just want to be ready. Here is my sheet that I made, one of them. I got a lot of other stuff, but this one was when I was reserving. I knew exactly when I wanted to go. So this is the week I ended up going. I got what I wanted. I did take my first day, because this is the day when you hit the trail. So I wanted July 26th to be my day I hit the trail. I was able to get that because I had finished booking at 8:03 a.m. But by 20 after 8, I wouldn't have gotten that day. It was already gone. So yeah, this sheet, what I made, it has high tides, extreme high tides, full moon, new moon, when the moon is visible, stats, weekends, all that kind of good stuff. These were the potential places I was going to be camping at. There was a little bit of flexibility there. I got some other, but this is basically where I was going to be. These are the tides and the time of day that it would have been when I got there. And this is a local time. These are all local times. So I had a very high tide. I had to work around, but I really wanted to make sure, because I was going from the south end, I wanted to make sure that I could get around Owens Point. That was kind of a highlight of me for mine, and I'm glad I did. And I had tons of time to do Owens Point, so it was great. That worked out well. But this is how anal I was. You obviously don't have to be this anal, but at least I knew what I was getting in for. So now you've done all your research, you've built your spreadsheets, which I'm sure all of you are doing. Now you want to reserve. So let's do that. Oh, I wanted to show you the GS key. So here's the GS key. What is it? A GS key lets you securely access the Government of Canada's online services. Google it. You can read this for yourself. How do you get one? Well, you end up on this page. You accept. You go through the information. It's up to you whether you want to supply this information, you want to go ahead with this, but it certainly made it easier and faster. Now, you may not think it's worth it just to book a time on a West Coast Trail. Entirely up to you. I went for it. So here we are. We're at the page, West Coast Trail. Normally, you would sign in, but do this beforehand so you're prepared and you're comfortable with the site. I don't need to sign in to get to this point because I'm not actually reserving anything at this point because it's not open yet. West Coast Trail. Just basically keep clicking West Coast Trail wherever it says. I was staying for 7 nights. This doesn't matter. This does matter. Combat. So you kind of have to do it couple times. Parks are closed for the season. So you can sit here and just keep hitting F5 or refreshing your browser, however you like to do it. I like to hit F5, and I just basically had a timer, and I saw when the actual time for Vancouver was clicking down, kept hitting that until this disappeared, boom, and then I went for it. But until that time, you can snoop around the site and get comfortable with what each one does. So basically, they all get you into the same place. Let's just, trail. So yeah, it's kind of all campgrounds. Actually, it's entry points for West Coast Trail. I don't know what that one. Party size was 1. The access entry point was Gordon River. This is why you need to know, are you going from the south, the north, or are you hopping on in the middle? You need to fill out these steps. So this gets you to the page or pages that show you, I think, how many spots are available and the days that were used up or you couldn't book anymore. So I can only go so far right now because, there we go. So it looks something like this. These days are available. As soon as they're booked up, they have an X on them. And like I say, in those 4 weeks, booked up really, really fast. I think you can go through here when it's open and click on it and then book your time. Don't quote me on that one. Can't remember. It's been a year ago and I only did it once. So like I say, there's different ways of doing this. You can go this way and same thing. You find your days which are available and see how it's starting there. So whichever you're comfortable with. I found that Gordon River booked up very fast. Pachina was not quite as fast, but it did book up quite quickly. And Nitnat was always open. Basically no days booked up, I don't think. That's in the middle point. But what I found that most people on the videos are actually going from north to south. I chose south to north. Most of the videos that I looked at were people going south to north, and they got off at the top. They were all happy doing the high fives. Anybody that went north to south and were getting off the south side, they were all pretty much upset, just glad to get off the trail. So it seemed to me from the videos that it was more enjoyable to go south to north, but your mileage may vary on that one. I chose the south north because I would have been in best shape, had most rest, and most prepared for the first 3 days. Pack is the heaviest, but I haven't gotten worn down and any little injuries haven't started up or acting up on me yet. I wasn't looking forward to the big long walk at the end, but anyway, that's the way I chose. I think a lot of people have a hard time when they go north-south because they do the big long walk, they're not ready, and basically they've got a heavy pack and they're getting worn out. Like little pains started acting up. And by the time they got to the end, they had blisters and they were sore, and rain changes everything. If it rains, it's a whole new ballgame. I didn't have any rain for the days I was there, but there's always mud and it's always wet on the inside, and rain in many spots where I was hiking would have made it just horrendous. So I can only imagine what it's like for some of those folks to do that, to do the entire trail with rain. It's an entirely different trail than when you're doing it dry. I think that pretty much shows what I did to get there. So you click on that, you choose your time, and then you get an email saying, okay, your time has been chosen, you got it, you are good to go. And then after that, you can go about choosing and booking your accommodation, which I did, and your transportation, which I did. Those places, I booked a hiker hut and the West Coast Express bus. I have information about that in another video. They weren't actually even open at the time, but you can go online and you can book it, and then a couple weeks later they send you an email going, okay, well, we saw it and you are reserved. So at least I got everything done beforehand and I was finished. And that pretty much is how I reserved my spot on the trail, and I'll make other videos maybe about the transportation and the accommodation, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's it. Well, good luck. So I just throw this in. Here's the cost, what it costs to do the West Coast Trail. This is the fee that you got to pay at the time of when you're reserving it, and it includes the ferries, GST, PST, all that good stuff. So yeah, it was $184 to do the trail. That does not include transportation, accommodation, food, all that good stuff. Yeah, for food, I don't know, you're paying cash, so I'd bring a couple hundred bucks. You can buy anything you want. If you want to buy a t-shirt, and you can only buy the t-shirts at the Nitnat Narrows. So you got to buy it there, not on the ends of the trail. Good luck.